Welcome to Unleashed. I'm James. This is
Andrew Fantasia.
And why are you wearing plaid?
I'm wearing plaid because today on Unleashed, James, we're talking about everybody's favorite plaid shirt hero. It's not Al Borland from Home Improvement. It is George Lucas. I thought for a second you were reaching for a pop of him. I'm like, oh, there's a pop of George Lucas.
There should be. I don't know why there's not.
There's got to be eventually. Thank you. Yeah, we're talking about George today. We're talking about the creator, the bearded one himself, the man with the plan that may or may not have included 9 or 12 movies. We don't know. There's like 20 different stories about that. But he's the reason we're here.
He is the reason we're here. And this week marks the 40th anniversary of Star Wars: A New Hope, which it was not referred to until years later. But Star Wars came out 40 years ago this very week. And it happened because George Lucas wanted to make a Flash Gordon film. Mm-hmm. He could not secure the rights, and he said, "Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write my own." And then he went ahead and he wrote this little thing called, what was it? The
Journal of the Wills.
The Adventures of Luke Starkiller, as told by the Journal of the Wills.
Chapter 1: The Star Wars.
Mace Windu lives. It was something ridiculous, and he wrote it, and then the Force was this big, overly convoluted something or rather, and he said, "Oh, well, that's convoluted. I'm going to unconvolute it," and he ended up making a thing. He ended up making Star Wars. The Star Wars, I think it was still referred to as, was the Star Wars. The Star Wars. And he thought, and nobody believed in this picture whatsoever.
No.
Nobody believed in it. And he, at some point, well, I think everybody hated him in England when they were shooting. Everybody hated George Lucas. And when it came out, he thought it was going to fail so miserably that he packed his bags, went to Hawaii, and came up with Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
Because that's what you do when you think you're going to fail. But really, they're going to be the biggest success story ever.
I was going to say he didn't rest on his laurels, but he didn't know he had laurels at the time. Yeah. So he didn't rest on his lack of laurels. Man, that's hard. I don't know how to put that together in my brain. But yeah, no, he...
Well, no one believed in it so much so that's why he was able to secure all of the merchandising for it. Because
that's right.
It was like, let's get this made. Give me the merchandising. Okay, this is going to fail. And then, years later, $4 billion, he sells it to Disney. And it's incredible. And
it's still, like, I still hold that as my business sort of gold standard, where if I ever invent something,
I'm going to sell it for $4 billion.
Even if it's not like but whatever I invent, whoever I pitch it to or sell it to, I am going to be very firm on the merchandising rights because that was the smartest thing I think that man has ever done. Have you ever walked into a store and not seen Star Wars merchandise?
Ever?
Yeah. So that man, every time, I don't know about now, I don't know if he retained anything. But
I'm pretty sure he's getting something, some back end, but nothing what he used to get, obviously.
Yeah. But back, before 2012, I don't know if these things were around, but every one of these.
No, they definitely weren't.
He's getting a cut.
Oh, look at that. George Lucas made 17% of the profit off of this.
Oh, there we go.
Wait, warning, not suitable for children under 36 months. Well, there you go. No newborns get pop figures. Hope you like that one.
There's no small parts. That's bullshit. Anyway, George
Lucas, let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
You grew up, after I did. I grew up with the original trilogy, original cuts. In fact, I'm not even sure. I can't say anything. But
what year were you born? Sorry?
I was 81.
81.
So I grew up watching these original cuts on VHS tape and beta tape. Beta and VHS. So I had the toys, and I had cousins that were older than me, so I get their hand-me-down toys. So I had every toy you could think of for Star Wars ever. You grew up after I did. Yeah. You're a few years younger. Did you experience the original versions of Star Wars, or were the first ones you saw the re-release special editions?
No, I got lucky enough to see the originals when they were released the final time on VHS, that little 3-pack. Because I didn't know what Star Wars was. I had heard the word Chewbacca before, and that was about it. I didn't know anything. And then on my 5th birthday, I was in line in Disney World for something. I was in Orlando, and there was in the lineup, among other things to look at to pass the time while you're in line, was a Darth Vader inside a glass case, like a life-size Darth Vader, and he was breathing. And I thought, A, he was a scuba diver.
Yep.
And B, that it was a real person in there because I heard breathing, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm 5 years old and I'm like shitting my pants because I'm terrified. And my mom explains to me who he is, and I'm like, what's a Star Wars? So eventually, like I think 2 years later, she bought me those VHSs. They were the ones that had interviews with Leonard Maltin, like before the movie started. So that thankfully I was introduced through those, and I think even those had some touch-ups from the originals because he's always touching stuff up, but I got to see it before the special edition. So I got to see, Han shooting, no Jabba scene in A New Hope, the Yub Nub, all that stuff. And I wanted to tell you about this because have you ever heard of the Mandela effect? Or the Mandela effect? Yeah. When I read up on that, I think like 2 weeks ago, I recalled a Mandela effect of the first time I saw A New Hope. Because I swear to this day, I am 99.9% certain that scene where Luke goes into Leia's cell and he's dressed in the stormtrooper outfit, and she says, "Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?" And the line he says after, he goes, "Huh? Oh, the uniform," and he takes the helmet off. I swear on my life, the first time I saw A New Hope, he didn't say, "Oh, the uniform." He said, "Oh, the suit." I swear to God. Mandela effect. If anybody else out there remembers him saying, "Oh, the suit," let me know. I swear. That's the thing.
I think you're nuts.
Maybe I am. I am dressed in plaid.
You're wearing plaid. You should have. Well, neither one of us have shaven in a while.
No, I'm sorry.
That's the good news here at Rebel Scum. We're trying to get our Lucas on. Have you seen the film Fanboys?
Yes.
What do you think of Fanboys?
I liked it. It was a lot of fun.
I loved Fanboys. Did you see 20 years ago the re-release of Star Wars in the theater?
No. I back then I did, the only time I really went to the movies back in the day was with my dad, like whenever I would see him, and because my mom, she's not really a go to the movies kind of person, so for some reason I just missed out on the special editions, even though I was like knee deep in Star Wars at that time. That's when I was getting those mail order things that I made that video about.
Yes.
So I don't know why I didn't go. I don't know why I didn't ask my dad, like, let's go see Star Wars. Maybe I didn't clue in that they were new, that there was new stuff. Maybe I just didn't process that. I was just fixated on what I knew and all the books I was reading and the fact that 3 more new ones were coming. So I don't know. I wish I had gone, but for whatever reason I didn't. Sorry.
I went. I saw it with some friends, and I was in high school, and I saw it with my friends. And my friends said, "We're gonna go. You want to come see Star Wars with us?" Because I didn't really. I was just kind of getting to know them. It was high school. It was like grade 10. I think I was in grade 10, and it was just kind of you're getting to know new people. And they said, "You want to go see Star Wars?" I'm like, "Yeah, I love Star Wars." They're like, "Yeah, we just saw it like a year ago," and I was like, "What?" Like for me, it was literally like I'm pretty sure my parents. I would wake up and they would grab me. Like when I was this big, and put me on a seat and just hit play and then leave, and it would be Star Wars or Indiana Jones. It would just be one of those 2 movies, and they would just play, and I'd be like, I love it. Like I'm pretty sure that's how it was. So when people were like, I just got into Star Wars, it always shocked me growing up because that was just part of my life was just watching Star Wars when I was a kid and playing the toys. Like it was probably, to be honest, I probably played with the toys before I ever saw a film.
Oh,
ever. I literally had the Millennium Falcon where you could put the figures in. I had the Ewok Village. I remember vividly when my mom took me to the toy store to get the Ewok Village. I had this Jabba the Hutt. I had a Tauntaun, and I got my little Yoda figure stuck in the Tauntaun. I played with them all, and then my parents gave them all to charity. And all I have left is my Obi-Wan, whose head just spins around. It's the old one too, where you put the lightsaber in their like wrist, like it goes,
oh my god,
wow. It goes in there. I have like their old school stuff. That was I never had like the 90s toys, and I only had the ones with like 1977, 1983, 1980 like written on them.
Kenner.
Yeah, like those ones. Yeah, and I couldn't tell you what packages. The only one I know is the Ewok Village because I remember so vividly getting the Ewok Village. Every other toy, I couldn't tell you what the boxes looked like they came in because it was like, like that's just how it was, and I would play with it and rip it to pieces. And that and He-Man and Thundercats.
Oh, I'm so jealous that you were born in 1981, right?
It was awesome. There was so much fun. But like I said, I had cousins that were older than me, so they kind of got out of toys. So I would get their, we just fill like beach buckets, like sand buckets with toys, and be like, here you go. I'm like, I got them all.
Do you have like home movies of these that we can watch on this channel?
No, they spent all my money on toys. There was no,
there's no camcorder.
No camcorder going on back then. There might be stills of me playing with like old stuff like that. So maybe somewhere. So now, so I never ended up seeing Return of the Jedi in the theater that re-released because my grandmother, my nonna, she passed away around that time, so I never got to go. And that's the only Star Wars film I have not seen in the theater is Return of the Jedi. Only one. Because, I was 2 when it came out in the theater. Yeah. And it's just, and then the re-release never got a chance. And then I was really looking forward to the 3D re-release about like 7-8 years ago. And then obviously that didn't happen because of things we'll get into in a little bit. But all of a sudden, the 20-year re-release comes out and everyone's like, yeah, Star Wars is the greatest thing ever, blah, blah, blah. And I never got those VHSs because I already had them on VHS. Mm-hmm. And you just didn't buy, even though the Death Star explosion looked a lot better, you just didn't buy it. Like, you already had it, so it was like, well, I don't need another copy. It's a VHS.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't need two. I mean, even though my VHS tape is starting to wear and tear because I watch it so much, I have it. I don't need it.
That's what happens to VHS kids.
Yeah,
you don't know how lucky you are.
You should Google VHS. And then all of a sudden, they say, hey, George Lucas is making another Star Wars.
Yeah.
And it was like, what? Another what? Again, these are the prequels. They're going to tell you how Anakin became Darth Vader. Okay, I'm in.
Yeah.
And the biggest moment, I think, for movies in terms of how we operate with them today happened because of The Phantom Menace and QuickTime. It was the first trailer to ever, I believe it debuted on QuickTime on the computer.
Oh my God.
And I think Entertainment Tonight obviously showed it because Entertainment Tonight used to be, I don't know if it still is, but it used to be that big cheese that showed everything.
Yeah.
But it was on QuickTime. And you would load this QuickTime video and it was like... And 7 hours later, there it was.
Oh my God.
The Phantom Menace trailer.
Could you watch it all without it like buffering?
Well, you have to wait for the 7 hours for it to download. Otherwise, it was just buffering.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Do you remember the first time you saw the Phantom Menace trailer?
I actually don't remember. Cause,
these kids, I tell you.
I know. I wasn't... I'm still not internet savvy. What the hell am I talking about?
No one is.
But I wasn't really into the internet. Like, I still remember first getting it back in like 97 and, the whole...
Remember when it was the phone line?
Yeah.
Get off the phone.
I had the phone line one till about 2001. That's how behind the curve I was.
We're still on it.
Yeah. But the only thing I used to do on the internet back then was I found this screensaver that was a game show. Because remember how big screensavers were back in the day? And one of them was a game show screensaver. And if you wait for it to come on, you wait for the actual screensaver to click in, you can play the game show. It was so stupid. So that was the only like internet thing I used to do. So I don't even know when that trailer would have dropped. I remember watching it. I mean, I remember.
I saw it on Entertainment Tonight. That's how I know it. That's when I saw it.
That's it.
But I remember in college we would watch it. But I remember other people I knew that had the internet were like, I'm going to watch it in 7 days because that's how long it's going to take to download.
I must have just seen it on TV because I remember, wipe them out. Yeah. All of them. And then that explosion with the droids.
One of the best trailers ever made. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you watched it now, it probably wouldn't hold up. But at the time, that was a phenomenal trailer.
Every saga has a beginning. And you know how often now that tagline, every blank has a blank. Every bad movie now has that in its poster.
Every movie, yeah. It's just what it is. But that's the genius of George Lucas. He went to QuickTime. He went to the internet. He recognized what the internet was before anyone else really recognized. Like before it became what. Like now, where do you go for trailers? The internet. That's where you go. That's where they live. That's where we are right now. That's how we're communicating right now. And we're gonna have a cool conversation in the comments because of the internet. Because George Lucas was able to see this so early on, and that was his genius. He I mean, look at who worked with him. John Knoll worked for him. He created Photoshop. Everything is designed on Photoshop.
It comes out of Photoshop.
And I believe Pixar was Lucas, and then he sold that, and all the Lucasfilm and all that. And he is a pioneer he pioneered so much.
Mm-hmm.
And say what you want about the prequels, what happened in the prequels is the technology. Because of the technology that he embraced for those prequels, because he shot Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith digitally, which to the dismay of J.J. Abrams, we now have everything we have now.
Yeah.
Like if Jar Jar Binks does not exist, we don't have Gollum.
Exactly.
Like that's how all these things worked. He pioneered it all, and he was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And then in 10 years, everybody else will be able to do this. And that's how he always handled every single aspect.
Mm-hmm. I wish he was still making movies, even if they're not Star Wars. Just come up with something else. And like, I want to see that movie he made, Strange Magic, that animated one. It's like a musical or something. But I just want him to keep creating and to keep pushing the envelope, because all we do is benefit from that.
Yep.
Whether or not the movies are amazing or not, everybody is winning when George Lucas makes a movie.
And that's exactly what James Cameron said about The Force Awakens. He said, well, it didn't really push anything. It didn't do what Star Wars and George Lucas is known for doing. It was stagnant. It was like, here it is, and that's that. And that's why I want to go into this next point now, where we bring in a somewhat young filmmaker who has made primarily indie-style films, and that's Rian Johnson.
Thank you. Oh, Rian Johnson. Oh, okay.
That's not you. Stop it. It's Rian Johnson. He did Brick and Looper, and specifically Looper, because Looper was more into the sci-fi genre, which I don't know if that's where Lucasfilm saw him or not, but I think Rian Johnson, J.J. Abrams did his thing, and it was very safe, and it was very like, okay, let's get everybody back in Star Wars, which I don't think... I know why they went safe, and he was very, very weary on special effects. It was like, they have to be practical. It's got to look practical. Everything's got to be practical. And I think and then you see now this backlash of The Force Awakens that's approaching now. And I think the issue with it all is it was fine, but because it was so safe and because of the story that they're telling, instead of going forward with everything, you just kind of went still and maybe a little bit sideways. You didn't really push anything where it needed to go. And I think, it made $2 billion. So it did what it had to do, but it's very safe. And now you have Rian Johnson. So George Lucas doing Star Wars is coming off of American Graffiti. Character-driven film, right? American Graffiti. Now you have Rian Johnson, who's not coming off of an American Graffiti type film, but he's coming off of this indie film style productions, right? This is kind of his smaller scale films is what he's doing, and he did Looper on a smaller scale, and it looks phenomenal. It's a great story, and I would love to see a franchise in that world. Even the technology and everything in that I would love.
Yeah.
So now this is why I think Rian Johnson is a great successor to George Lucas, because I think now J.J. Abrams has planted the seed. He's like, people are like, I love Star Wars again, yay! Now Rian Johnson can come in and be like, okay, we have to grow up here. We have to tell a big boy story now. You're all sold on what's happening. Here it is. And that's what George Lucas did basically with Empire Strikes Back, right? I mean, he had Lawrence Kasdan to help him, but this is Rian Johnson coming in.
Yeah, it's happening again, just 30 years later. No, you're right. It's the perfect way to do it. JJ he's a guy who plays off nostalgia. So you have great movies like Super 8, like Star Trek, where he reminded us why we used to love blank, and he's like, here it is again. Now there's just more of it. And so he did the same with Force Awakens, where he's like, remember how we all used to love Star Wars? And everybody was like, yeah. And even people who never touched a Star Wars movie in their life, all of a sudden they're like, wow, that was a lot of fun. I want to see the next one now. Who's Rey's mom? So to kind of, everybody is now on the train. And now, JJ's like, okay, we're just going to make a stop at this station, and I'm on my break, and a new conductor is going to take over. Now the train is going to go through some dark tunnels now. It's going to, dodge and dip and do some things that this train has not done before. But trust me, by the end of it, you're going to have gone on one hell of a ride. I just needed to slow the train down for a bit so more people could get back on it because the train was kind of old and squeaky before.
But here's an argument to that. The new Star Wars film that came out, that became The Force Awakens, was always going to make $700 million plus. Yeah. No matter what it was. Yeah. This is the thing. Did that film need to be as safe as it was? Did The Force Awakens need to be as safe as it was? Could it push the boundaries a little bit more?
I think in very small ways it did push boundaries. It wasn't as static as everybody says it is. I mean, you have your first Star Wars movie with a leading female hero instead of a leading male hero.
But that was George Lucas's plan anyway for it. That's what he wanted.
He wanted it as a girl as well. Okay, cool.
I just think, like now there's so much pressure on The Last Jedi to answer questions that never needed to be asked in the first place. But you know what I mean? That was like, basically what you're doing is what you're doing what George Lucas did when people said he screwed up with the prequels with the Phantom Menace. Is the Phantom Menace doesn't really do much for Anakin other than show him as a little kid, and now you have Rey, but all the questions we have, I hope questions get answered about Rey.
I hope. I mean, like that's a thing that we won't really be able to either praise or complain about until this trilogy's over.
Which is such a huge problem because how do you like once we watch it we're like, well, no, Rey was trained when she was a kid. But what if it's never addressed? Well, it's like you're just really good with the Force, girl. Yeah. Then it's like then people saying she's a Mary Sue, it's almost like, well, I don't know if I can argue with you anymore because they've pretty much just made, and it sucks that she's a female and it has to be that way. But it's like, where's your argument now against it?
Yeah.
So Rian Johnson, I think they're going to address it. I think we might not get, it might not be addressed until 9.
No, you're right, and that's fine if they wait till 9 to address it too. I don't know. Lucasfilm is just, they feel like they're too smart to not learn from everything that's come before.
But this is the thing with J.J. Abrams, I think, though, is he does what he wants. Mm-hmm. And he's like, and the story group's like, Rah, and he's like, yeah, but you know what? Her name's Rey, but we already have her. No, I'm J.J. Abrams. You hired me. And they're like, oh. You know what I mean? Like even Rian Johnson, whatever he says now, like he changed the scar, which is so, people getting mad at that is so dumb. But it's the same type of thing, though. He changed the scar. What's anyone going to say to him? Don't change the scar. He's like, no, I'm changing the scar. I'm the director of this. You hired me to do this. I'm going to do what I want. And J.J. Abrams did the same thing, where he's like, no, I'm going to do what I want. And maybe pieces of it are like, well, that, you know.
But I'm hoping. I mean, I don't know, but I'm hoping that it's not the same case as it was with the prequels, where everybody was afraid to say no to George.
Well, that was completely different. Yeah. But I think people were afraid to say no to J.J. Abrams. I really think they were.
You and Kathleen?
Yeah. I think so. Because everybody wanted him. They wanted him bad. Mm-hmm. Right? Look how much money he brought them.
Yeah, I know.
Like the thing with him, though, is what he does is he did this with Star Trek, too. He did Star Trek, but there's no aliens you recognize in it. Yeah. And hardcore Star Trek fans were like, that's not Star Trek. Whereas Star Wars, he's the same. There's no aliens you recognize, and it's really the least of a Star Wars film of all of them in a lot of ways. Like, it's weird because it's very much Star Wars, but it's very not Star Wars. It's kind of like it's in this weird. I mean, it's 2015 when it came out, so it has to live in a different world. It's weird. It's just weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was going to be different regardless. Yeah. I mean, unless you brought back Lucas to direct, it was going to be a different feeling movie. It just was.
I think I want to know how much of his outline they ended up using, because I'm confident. Yeah, I'm confident that Abrams got some info out of him, and there is some stuff. And I think there's a possibility that Snoke was actually something, not the name Snoke, and possibly not exactly what he is, but an aspect of Snoke is something that George Lucas had envisioned, 40 years ago this week. 40 years ago, I think. That might have been, like, because his original plan was it was going to follow, I believe, a female lead, but she was going to be much younger than Rey. And I think that was Disney's issue, was they didn't want it to be like the Phantom Menace. Yeah. But then you hear that it was supposed to be teenagers, and Rey's supposed to be 19, so I don't understand anything.
I don't know. Let me ask you this. Do you think, I mean, he's getting pretty old now, but do you think we'll get to a point where the Star Wars franchise, as Disney holds it, is so confident in itself that Kathleen can call up George and be like, George, would you like to do a spin-off movie?
No, that's never gonna happen. I think he's done. I don't even think he wants to do it. And could you imagine if he does a spin-off film and it's received like the prequels? He would never do it. I think he's done. And I also think that Kathleen Kennedy is not going to be the head of Lucasfilm much longer. I think she's going to replace Bob Iger.
Really? That's interesting.
At Disney, and then hopefully, I hope they're grooming. Everyone's like, I hope Filoni does a live action. I hope Filoni becomes Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah, I mean,
that's where I want to see.
The man knows his.
Nobody knows Star Wars more than him.
Either him or Hidalgo. Like put one of them in that chair.
But Hidalgo's more. But Hidalgo's not. And I don't know Pablo Hidalgo. I did pass him in the hallway at Star Wars Celebration the day before. So we have a connection. But no, but he's not in the business. Essentially, he's not. He is, but he's not. He's like the historian type. Like, he's the guy you go to for canon.
He's just like a really, really, really smart version of like us.
Yeah, but he knows everything.
Yeah.
But whereas Filoni is a creative type and he understands the process of doing this and that, and I just like that would be so perfect. I mean, but at the same time, maybe that's not what he wants.
Maybe, and so far, I really like Kathleen and what she's been doing, and I think she's like she walks that very fine line where she's. She knows the business side of it, but she's respectful of the Star Wars side of it. I feel like it could be very easy to get somebody who falls on one side of the line where they're either too obsessed with the franchise itself to make, coherent decisions, or just too focused on money to even care. Like, I don't even know what Yoda is. I just want this movie to make $1 billion. So I'm glad we have somebody like Kathleen who's, she has the balance. Hey, balance, that's in the trailer. That's important. She's like a gray Jedi, but a producer. So, yeah.
See, but this is where I think she was dead perfect on getting J.J. Abrams. For all of the faults that I just said about J.J. Abrams doing the movie, that is exactly why you need him to do it, because because it's going to make $700 million plus no matter what. But the important thing to remember is The Last Jedi Episode 8 is not going to make $700 million plus if people do not like Episode 7. So you need Episode 7 to be that safe film to get the people to come back to the theater to watch the next one. Because if people do not like what they see before, they're not going to come back. But if you love what you saw, you're going to come back. That's exactly how it works. And that's why J.J. Abrams was so important. And that's why they didn't say yes to everything he said, but that's why he got away with what he needs to get away with.
Yeah, he was.
It made $2 billion.
He was the foot in the door. They needed the foot in the door.
Because I still say they could have made a remake of The Phantom Menace and it would have made $700 million. But the next one's not going to make $700 million.
No.
And you need the next one too.
Yeah.
Now with The Last Jedi, you're in this weird gray area where I think it's going to be split, a little bit more split. Because it's going to take that darker tone. It's going to be more mature. And it's going to be exactly why Rian Johnson, I think, is the perfect successor to George Lucas. Because it's going to be more of a Lucas-style Star Wars. Old Lucas. And Rian Johnson respects the prequels for what they are. He respects them. And so you're getting these rumors that Laura Dern is going to look very prequel-esque.
Yeah.
And Benicio del Toro is playing Ben Quadinaros. No, but he understands, and I think he is closer to George Lucas, where J.J. Abrams is the big blockbuster. He'll get you back. Like he is like what The Rock is to French, like acting.
Yeah, that's
he got
true.
Mission Impossible back. He got Star Trek back, Star Wars back, and I think he said he's done with franchises now.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah, well, how could you not be? I would be exhausted if I was him. But that's what you need, and that's why I think. So now, The Last Jedi is not going to make as much as The Force Awakens. It's going to make more than Rogue One, but it's not going to make as much as Force Awakens. Unless it is the greatest film ever made. But then, how do you even compare it then? Because if it's dark, you're already going to lose people on returning.
See, I disagree with that.
No. Hold on. Unplug your mic. All right, go. Disagree. His mic's not actually not playing.
I think the darkness, the differentness of this whole movie is going to be what draws people in and what they talk about, because there were more there are a lot of complaints about Force Awakens being too similar. There were not a lot of complaints about Force Awakens not being similar enough. You know what I mean? So I think that the fact that there is going to be this huge shift in tone, that's going to make people, that's going to raise some eyebrows. It's going to get people thinking,
yeah, it'll get people the first time, but it's going to get them the fifth and sixth time.
Oh, we know it's going to get us the fifth and sixth time. We know there's hardcores out there who are going to go, but it comes down to a matter of this is a different story, so word of mouth will spread, and people who have not touched Star Wars yet, even the new ones, will be like, okay, this is different, let's see. This is a grown-up movie, let's see. And the second thing that's going to draw people in that, face it, we didn't have in the prequels, like, at all, was curiosity. We don't know what's going to happen. We have questions. In the prequels, we didn't have questions.
You know, the problem with the prequels, though, in that respect, is that they could have had questions.
Absolutely,
but they killed Darth Maul in the first one. Then Dooku was, I like Dooku, but there's no question about Dooku. He kind of did what he did, and that was it. But that's also, and this is another thing where you take old style storytelling versus new style. In the old way, you didn't need questions. People just stuck around. And I'm not talking prequel. I'm talking like even the original trilogy. There's no questions. We didn't question Luke's father. It just happened to be that was the shock that we had.
But now, after Empire, everybody was wondering.
Then you have questions. But but that's what makes like storytelling back then better than it is now. Then the questions came because of the story. Now they come because they hide things from you.
Right.
And that, I think it's weak.
It's not ideal. It's not ideal, but yeah, the world has changed to a point where we can't write like that anymore. We can't.
Yes, you can. They're so secretive. You could do whatever you want. Yeah. John Williams knows whose Rey parents are. Oh, and so do I.
You must. Oh.
And I'm about to tell you.
Okay. Who is it?
No, you got to wait for the movie.
Okay. Let's start.
Well, you think though, if John Williams knows, why would he know? Because they want to put it in her theme. So I imagine if you listen to her theme and you listen to every single score he did,
it sounds like the Emperor's theme. I've told you this before.
Yeah, okay. She can be Palpatine. I don't care. I've really stopped caring. I don't think she's a Palpatine. I don't think she is a Skywalker. I don't think she is a Solo Cup. I don't think. Yeah, she's one of those. She's not a Kenobi.
Mm-hmm. I hope she's not a Kenobi.
They keep putting his voice in the trailers and in the films. The one film. Anyway, but I just can we not talk about this right now?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not into her lineage so much. I think
not as much as Brock.
Brock's just like, no, I don't even want her in the movie anymore. I would like her to just be the polar opposite of Snoke. Whatever Snoke is, she is the polar opposite.
Mm-hmm.
And then she turns evil.
Oh no!
I really thought she was going to go dark.
And then Snoke has to turn good because he's her opposite.
Exactly. And Snoke is Thrawn, which we talked about a couple weeks ago. Boom!
There we go. Rian Johnson, thank you. You can send us the check.
Do you think there's going to be I am your father twist?
As in Luke saying it?
No. Just in general.
In general, like towards the end of the movie, somebody's gonna
or beginning, whenever.
To be honest, I really don't know, man. I mean, like I said, in my heart of hearts, I want her to be a Palpatine, and to do that, I think it's not. You don't play that as like a big like dun dun dun. You play it as like a really kind of serious moment where it's like, look, Rey, I got to tell you who your grandfather is, and you're not going to like the answer. And when she finds out, we saw the trailer, right? That's how I would react if I found out I was related to Hitler.
Yeah, I think so. I think the answer to who Rey, part of who Rey is, not the whole thing, but a portion of who Rey is, like enough. Like the part we should have got in Force Awakens, like that part, the part where Obi-Wan tells Luke that Anakin was his father and he was a Jedi and Darth Vader turned to the dark side and was a pupil of it. That part we're going to get of Rey's backstory, whatever it happens to
Yes.
be. We're going to get that at the very beginning of the movie
Mhm.
or in the first half hour, somewhere around there on Act 2, whatever. Somewhere around there, we're going to get that. And yeah, that part is probably, or that could just be her. She's going to have a Force vision. That is definitely after a Force vision. And she sees something that blows her mind, but it might even be Luke killing somebody. What?
Oh, no, stop breaking my heart.
Why can't Luke kill somebody? He's killed many of people. Have you
As long
not
as
seen
that's-
Return of the Jedi?
That somebody has to be a bad person, though.
He kills everyone in Return of the Jedi at the beginning of Jabba's palace.
Yeah, there's a lot
You
of
can't.
dead
Yeah,
guys.
so Luke is actually pretty bad. That's what I think. Anyway, so George Lucas did a great thing in creating this little film called Star Wars,
He
where we
did.
have a podcast and a YouTube channel on. J.J. Abrams did a great job of bringing it back to life, and Rian Johnson, like I said, I think he is the one that we need to keep the ship going in a direction that will keep it fresh and entertaining. Then you have Colin Trevorrow.
Now that's my biggest concern. Is I hope that we don't get this like masterful dark Rian Johnson movie, and then we just get like a la 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 Colin Trevorrow
I loved
movie.
when Rian Johnson was doing the treatment for 9, but then Carrie Fisher passed away, and they had to scrap it and do it all. And the whole thing is, say what you want about J.J. Abrams, whether you loved it or didn't. You almost wish that he would have done all 3 of them.
Yeah,
And so, in some respect, because you're like, well, finish your damn story.
yeah. 'cause
Like if that was an isolated film and you like A New Hope and you can, or even Phantom Menace for much of it, like if you could just watch The Force Awakens without needing The Last Jedi, I'd be like, fine, get someone new. But it's
Yeah.
not a complete. It's
I'm
like the 2 towers in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
it's like you're stuck
exactly.
in the middle of this movie.
I'm just afraid as like I have nothing against Colin Trevorrow. I mean, I like Jurassic World, but I'm just afraid of inconsistency, especially
That's what I mean.
traversing from 8 to 9. Like imagine sitting down and watching like 8 and then like, oh, 9's coming out tomorrow, so let me sit down and watch my Blu-ray of 8 and then go see 9. And it's like,
and then
going
Chris
from
Pratt
watching-
plays Luke Skywalker.
It's like watching like Rosemary's Baby, and then you go in and it's like the Curious George movie.
How much
like,
did you like Jurassic World?
enough to have fun with it, but enough to be like, I want to open it up. It's too confined to like one sort of thing. I want to
I compare it to the third one.
really.
I like the third one. I like all of them because I like dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Look, if you have pirates, dinosaurs, and spaceships, I'm pretty much sold on your film.
Oh, you are
But-
gonna love one of my books.
I did it. I read it, and I was like, "This." No, I'm joking. It's called Fantasia for Life. But it was it was fun, but it had no depth to it,
Mhm.
and it was that played it even safer than Force Awakens played it.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
it was
yeah.
like it played it very safe. But I do very much enjoy it. But I would compare it to the third one more than I would compare it to the first 2, even. Especially the first. You can't compare it to the first one, even though
No,
it's like a kid's version of the first one.
It is, yeah. I wouldn't even like. I don't even look at it in terms of comparisons, like how we look at Force Awakens in terms of within the New Hope. I don't even see Jurassic World like that.
Oh,
just-
it's not. It's not. It's just. It's like.
Yeah, I see it just like as a sequel, a good sequel, 30 years later or whatever, 20 years later, that just sort of has to pick up the pieces and start anew.
And that's what sucks.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to pick up pieces. Just people were going to see that movie regardless. There were dinosaurs in it.
Yeah. So,
Dinosaurs.
Colin, I don't know, like.
But have you seen Safety Not Guaranteed, his first film?
No, but I really want to.
That is a fantastic picture. I think it's on Netflix. It was on
good.
Netflix. I have it on Blu-ray. I can't let you borrow it because I don't know where that Blu-ray is. It is a fantastic film. It's very good, which made me very excited for him doing Jurassic World. I like Jurassic World a lot, but I was a little bit disappointed in that it was very safe.
Mhm.
But if you take Jurassic World out and you put Colin Trevorrow in the Star Wars world with the story group, and Rian Johnson's still going to have a portion to do with. Like, there's no way he's going to be completely separate from it.
Yeah.
He's just not going to be as involved as he was. So when you combine all of that, because of Safety Not Guaranteed, and you take away your fear from Jurassic World, it's the same thing I said about Rian Johnson George Lucas coming from American Graffiti. It's a small indie film, and he might understand the story and the characters and how to complete this.
Yeah.
Because he's not dark. He's definitely won't be dark. It definitely will have a little, it could be dark, but it's definitely gonna. But it has to be complete. It has to be a complete story. It has to end.
And to be fair, I mean, like, the third one in the trilogy, by experience, we think, okay, it's not going to be as dark as 2, but remember, nothing really got as dark as Luke and Vader in the throne room.
Yep.
So we're not in for, sunshine and rainbows with 9. I'm just hoping it's not a huge shock to the system going from 8 to 9. That's my concern. But you're right. I don't think, regardless of rewrites, even if they had to scrap a lot of 9, I think that, there was probably a lot in there where they're like, okay, Ryan, your stuff in here, we don't have to change this. We don't have to change X and Y. So you're still going to get trickles of what Ryan put in there. So it's going to feel more seamless than I'm afraid it's going to be. I have reservations just because,
Yeah, I still
safety
wish...
is not guaranteed in this situation.
I know the original trilogy had 3 different directors, but it had George Lucas.
Yeah.
Now you have 3 different directors, and you have Kathleen Kennedy, but she's not George Lucas.
No.
And I mean, she's great and understands everything, but it's not like this is like her idea. Like this is like this is the problem with this trilogy of films now is whose idea are they?
Yeah,
they're kind of like
true.
Michael Arndt was in to hire something based on maybe George Lucas's stuff that Disney said they didn't want to do, so he wrote something, and then J.J. Abrams was like, well, this is not what I want to do, but he didn't change it. I mentioned this a few weeks ago on the podcast where he didn't change it enough for him not to get a writing credit, so obviously what he had was something.
Yeah.
And J.J. Abrams and Lawrence Kasdan did something, and then Rian Johnson comes in, and then they're like, Rian Johnson's doing 8 and 9. Perfect, fine. But then no, Rian Johnson's not doing 9. So it's like, well, whose story is this? This is like the DC cinematic universe now. Sorry, I apologize. It's nothing like the DC cinematic universe but whose idea is this?
Is there anything that we know for sure that's like this was Kathleen's idea? That she's like, I decided Rey should have a staff. Like, was anything like from her mouth like that we know of?
I imagine something was, but I don't know.
Because I feel like she has had good input. I'm just trying to think of an example.
I think she's definitely had good input, but I would imagine that whatever the story is was given to her, and she okayed the entire story, and then they just fill the gaps. So it's like the story starts here, goes here, ends here, and she goes, okay, you write the through line here, and you write the through line there, and then you conclude it over there. But I don't. That's the difference. Is George Lucas. He might not be able to write dialogue. He might not be the best director, but he had the idea. Mm-hmm. And then he let other people talented do it. And then when he did the prequels, he wanted like Ron Howard to do the Phantom Menace, and he wanted Kasdan to come back, and everyone said, no, do what you do. And he did it himself, which is fine. Mm-hmm. It was his own independent film that he made with his own money. He could do whatever he wants. So he did it. But it was still like, he made it up as he went along, but still his mind was the center of it all. Now, that's the one concern. And that's to your point of, is the third one going to feel disjointed? Well, who's the keymaster?
Yeah. Only time will tell.
Only time will tell, and that is it for our time. We talked enough about George Lucas and Star Wars today. 40 years on May 25th, just a couple of days away.
Thank you very much, George, for 40 years of cinematic memories.
George, where can everybody find you?
You can find me at Skywalker Ranch. Do I still work there? No. I live in Chicago now, I think. I don't know. You can find me, though.
I wouldn't live in Chicago if I were him.
Doesn't he live in Chicago?
Probably.
Doesn't his new wife lives in Chicago?
Yeah, probably. But it's so much warmer in California. Actually, no, San Francisco's not that much warmer.
Plus, it's called Skywalker Ranch. Why would you want to live anywhere else? But you can find me other places. You can find me on Facebook at Andrew Fantasia, and you can find me on Twitter, also at Andrew Fantasia.
And if, like we said a couple of weeks ago, if you tweet him, he will tweet you back with an emoji with sunglasses this time.
Return the tweet.
You can find me at Petsafina on everything, and you can kick my butt at Battlefront on PlayStation 4 at Petsafina. That's me. That is the show. This has been Unleashed, and may the force of others be with you.
Always.
Hey scumbags, thanks for watching. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up on our video. As always, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Rebel Scum Podcast, for all the latest videos.